Well. This is our first full live news, and we're going to start doing this every morning from 8 o'clock to 8:30. And we're a gold and silver company, but there's a lot more to us than just gold and silver. And we just want to bring this out, bring out the real news, bring out some things that are happening right now. I want to introduce my co-host, Robert. Robert, say hi to everybody out there.
How's it going, everybody?
Yeah. So we're just two cool, crazy news guys, and we're not on the actual TV yet, but we're headed there.
There you
But
go.
we just want to get the word out to you guys. Look, I want to talk about inflation, and I want to tell you something. Inflation is real, and it's manufactured by many governments. And what governments do is they manufacture inflation, and I'm sure every one of you are feeling it right now because you go into a restaurant, you order Uber Eats, it's expensive. Everything's expensive. Prices keep going up, our dollar gets weaker. So what governments do is they create inflation, they manufacture it. And the reason that they do this is it's a way for them to depreciate our debt, yet they destroy the value of our dollar, and they do it by hyperinflation, or hyperinflating everything. Robert, you got anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing that I have to add to that is, why is the government doing this right now? Why are they hiding behind the fact that inflation continues to rise and cost of goods and production also continues to rise? Why are they hiding it?
Well, I don't know if they're really hiding it because I don't know about you, but gasoline right now is ridiculous. I mean, and right now they put a Band-Aid on it because they sold all the strategic reserves, right? So the price is down right now, but then the price is going to go right back up again, and we're going to be right back where they're at. Listen, I want to share something with you, and this comes from a guy by the name of Jim Rickards. And if y'all don't know who Jim Rickards is, he's a former advisor to the Pentagon and the CIA. So this guy has a lot of contacts out there that you and I don't have. And he's talking about how the dollar, and I want y'all to listen to this, the dollar is a victim of its own success. And what he says that America's most powerful weapon of war does not shoot, does not fly, or does not explode. It's not a submarine, a plane, a tank, or a laser. He says America's most powerful strategic weapon today is the dollar. Now listen to this. He says the U.S. uses the dollar strategically to reward friends and punish enemies. So look, one thing I do is I'm one of these that check, fact, no hoax. So I do my due diligence and all this, and you should as well. So the U.S., he says, uses the dollar as a weapon. It's not limited to trade wars and currency wars. He says, although the dollar is used tactically in those disputes, the dollar is much more powerful than that. He says the dollar can be used for regime change by creating, here's that word, hyperinflation, bank runs, and domestic dissent in countries that are targeted by the U.S., that the U.S. can depose the governments of its adversaries or at least blunt their policies without even firing a shot. And he goes on, he says, consider the following. Here's what he says. He said, the dollar constitutes about 60% of global reserves and 80% of global payments and almost 100% of all global oil transactions. He says European banks that make dollar-denominated loans to customers, well, they have to borrow dollars in order to fund those liabilities. So being based in Switzerland or Germany does not allow you to escape from the dollar's dominance. And see, the U.S. not only controls the dollar, but they have to have a payment system to push that dollar. And we're all familiar with like Fedwire, like when we send a wire, right? Or that wire then has to be backed by something like a clearinghouse. So he says the US not only controls the dollar itself, but it controls the dollar payment system. And this consists of the Treasury's digital ledger of holders, meaning the Clearinghouse Association, which is a successor to the New York Clearinghouse and a proprietor of CHIPS. In other words, the Clearinghouse Interbank Payment System. But here's the thing, these are all composed of the largest US banks. And I'm sure you've walked up to the window of a bank. If not, now you can do it and see. But you walk up to the window of a bank and you'll see member US, what is it?
Member banks.
Member banks, yeah, member banks. And you'll see that like a sticker on that. Well, they're all member banks. They're all part of the Federal Reserve. And a dollar payment, like he said, a dollar payment going, say, from a bank in Shanghai to another bank in Sydney has to run through one of those US controlled payment systems. So, in short, the dollar is now, like we breathe, the oxygen supply for world commerce, and the US can just cut off your oxygen whenever it wants. Think about that for a minute. So, it's controlling all of the dollars. So, examples, I'll give you an example, like he says, examples of the US employing these financial weapons. They're long and they precede the draconian sanctions that are imposed on Russia in the wake of recent invasion of Ukraine. And boy, we got some news for you about Russia, what's getting ready to go down that just broke out. But I'll tell you how this works. So the US slapped sanctions on Russia after 2014 annexation of Crimea. Well, guess what? They're getting ready to annex and globalize all of these regions that they've taken over in Ukraine. And we're going to talk about that here in a little bit. But talks about, he says, the US waged a full-scale financial war with Iran, for those of you who remember, from 2011 to 2013. And what that did was that resulted in bank runs, hyperinflation, local currency devaluation, and social unrest. And then the US came by and slapped stiff penalties on China for theft of intellectual properties, and other obvious victims of US financial weapons are North Korea, Syria, Cuba, and Venezuela. And he goes on, he says, the actions did not, and I agree with him, they did not arise in the normal course of trade and finance. The Russian and the Iranian and other sanctions, what they are is they're called geopolitical. They're explicitly geopolitical. While the Chinese sanctions, they're what we call geostrategic, to the extent that the US and China are all fighting or vying for technological supremacy. Everybody's after that technological supremacy right now. And so for every action, there's always a reaction. And none of those sanctions would even be effective or even possible without the dollar. And remember, the dollar payment system. So for every action, there is a reaction. And America's adversaries realize how weak they are to our dollar, to these dollar-based sanctions. So in short run, they have to grin and bear it. Well, guess what? I feel just like them, because our dollar, and I don't know what you think about this, Robert, but our dollar is getting weaker because the price of our goods are going up.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like it's a true weapon. They're really weaponizing.
But even on us, So here, they already, these other adversaries and so-called allies of ours, they're not standing still. And they've already envisioned a world where the dollar is not the major currency, should I say major reserve and trade currency. And in the longer run, you have Russia, China, Iran, and others are literally working flat out to implement a non-dollar denominated currency, independent payment system altogether. And, you know, Jim says, I've been warning for years about efforts of nations like Russia and China to escape what they call dollar hegemony, which is also dollar dominance, and create a new financial system that does not depend on the dollar and helps them get out from underneath the dollar-based sanctions. Think about it. What do you think would happen if we no longer have a dollar that is dominating and our dollar is destroyed? And this is why it clearly states in Executive Order 140607 that Biden signed, I believe it was in March, he signed it.
March 9th.
Yeah, March. He signed it in March, and it goes into effect, guess what, in December. But there's a lot of things that are showing that it could happen. Things are going to happen very quickly. And it makes sense that it clearly states in there that in order to remain the dominating currency, that there has to be a sidekick called digital currency, which is called central bank digital currency. I'm sure you've all heard of I'm not talking about CBD, right? I'm talking about CBDC, central bank digital currency, which, what I'm hearing, the broadest form of government digital currency is going to become the central bank, like ours is the Federal Reserve, offering deposit accounts to the public at large. So now individuals like you and me and Robert, all of us, municipalities, our businesses, you name it, we're all going to have these deposit accounts with the Federal Reserve instead of with private banks. So now all of our transactions can be traced all the way down. Think about it. If I give you a $100 bill right now, or even a dollar bill or whatever, they don't know I gave it to you. They don't know where I got it from, right? But once I have to give it to you in a digital currency, now not only do they know where I got it from, but they know who I gave it to. So it can be traced all the way down. And that's a tax authority's dream. And you got to remember, we have 80-something thousand IRS agents come into play. Now, from what I'm hearing from Jim Rickards is that instead of it being like a currency, we'll have our currency, but it's going to be a trackable spyware software that is going to be able to track everything that we do. You have anything to say about that?
Absolutely. One thing I want to say is what Rick was just saying right now about that. I'll read it to you. It says that your life, savings, and your freedom is immediately at risk because of central bank digital currency, or what they call the trackable spyware version of central bank digital currency. It's un-American. It's unprecedented right now. This is the
There's nothing we can do about it. It's already happening.
The foundational building blocks right now are being set for us so that we're trapped. It's very un-American, and it really takes a lot of control over the American people. It takes it right away from them.
Yeah.
It's just unbelievable.
You know, he says this. He says no one wants to be next. In other words, he says that Russia and China are escaping what they call the dollar dominance and create a new financial system that does not depend on the dollar and helps them get out from under the dollar-based economic sanctions. And he said these efforts are only increasing more and more, especially after the Russian sanctions. And he goes on, he says, and no one wants to be next. And he says, you can be confident. And this is why I'm sitting where I'm at and why I have a gold company is he says, you can be confident that gold would play a role in a new monetary order. And he says the use of gold is the ideal way to avoid U.S. financial warfare. And gold is physical, so it cannot be hacked, which he's right, and it's completely fungible. It's an element, it's an atomic number 79, so therefore it cannot be traced. And unlike like stocks, bonds, all these sort of things, gold can actually be transported in sealed containers on airplanes so that movements cannot be identified through wire transfer message traffic or satellite surveillance. And he says Russia, here's what he puts as an example. He says Russia, for example, can settle its balance of payment obligations with gold shipments or gold sales and avoid U.S. asset freezes. And Russia is providing other nations a model to achieve a similar distance from U.S. efforts to use the dollar to enforce its foreign priorities. That's some heavy words. He says, even Europe, and he's right, even Europe now is showing signs that they want to get out from underneath the dollar's dominance. All you got to do, those of you that are from Europe or know people in Europe, look at the euro. The euro is $1 to $1. The other day, it was 99 cents to the dollar. That's unheard of. I was talking to a friend of mine the other day who is a retired doctor from the UK, and he moved back to his home country, Germany, and he was telling me, he's like, Alan, a loaf of bread right now costs me $8 to $9 for a loaf of sour bread dough, a bread. I was like, wow. So everything is already more expensive over there because they price their units in difference over there. So when the euro is the same as the dollar, that means inflation is higher over there. Scary times, my friends. And so listen to what he says. And I want you to understand this too. So not only do we have clearinghouse and the Fed wire, but all major banks, not just the US banks, all major banks, they use what we call a SWIFT system. And what a SWIFT system is, it's the nerve center of the global financial network. So all global banks, they use this network, in other words, messaging system, to move currencies, whether it's Chinese yen, whether it's whatever kind of global currency it is besides fiat currency. Well, listen to what he says here, and I want you to listen to this careful. And those of you can remember this. In 2012, or it says the US had previously banned Iran from the dollar payment system, which was the Fedwire, right? Which it controls. So the US controls Fedwire, remember that. But Iran said, not so fast. They turned to SWIFT so that they could transfer their euros and their yen to maintain receipt of hard currency for their oil exports. And then in 2012, the US campaigned and successfully kicked Iran out of SWIFT. And this was a huge blow to Iran because it could no longer receive payments in hard currency for its oil. So what that did was that pushed Iran to the bargaining table. Remember, United States uses the currency to bargain, barter, war, weapons, all these sort of things, supposedly. So they pushed Iran to the bargaining table, which resulted in a nuclear deal with the US in 2015. And of course, then the US banned Russia from SWIFT after its February invasion of Ukraine. But in the longer run, what this is just one more development after development, pushing the world at large away from the dollar and toward alternatives of all kinds, including new payment systems that are possibly backed by gold. And imagine this, y'all, and this is what Jim says. Imagine a three-way trade in which North Korea sells weapons to Iran, and then Iran sells to China, and then China goes around and sells food to North Korea. Well, all of those transactions can be recorded on a blockchain, and then they're netted out on a quarterly basis with the net settlement payment made in gold shipped to the party with the net balance due. He said that's a glimpse of what a non-dollar payment system looks like.
You know, in one sense, you wouldn't even know that it's happening, right?
Yeah.
Totally reclusive.
Well, I mean, look at what they did in Venezuela. It wasn't us. Venezuela did this. I remember seeing it. Maduro, he devalued those people's currency overnight by 95%. If you had a dollar, you had a nickel when you woke up. In fact, toilet paper, a roll of toilet paper was worth more than a bolivar. And he just devalued their currency overnight. Well, in the long run, our currency is devaluing because inflation just keeps going higher and higher. But yet, our administration will tell us that there is no inflation. Inflation it went up a little bit, but not much, and that they're making progress. I mean, what's your thoughts on that?
It's just the government right now and the Biden administration essentially gaslighting Americans.
Yeah.
They're just gaslighting us.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, what do we do?
What could you do?
I always say, look, this is why I got into precious metals, because when you look at precious metals, it's a inflation hedge. Because think about this, it's always going to be there. It's been around since the biblical times. And we here at United Gold Group, we not only are able to get you into gold and silver, but we're able to explain a lot of things why. And all you have to do is just reach out to us and give us a call, and we'll give you the 800 number here in just a moment. We'll give you the 800 number. Or you can just email us as well. You can email trade group at unitedgoldgroup.com, or Alan at unitedgoldgroup.com. There's many ways you can get in touch with us. And the 800 number, you want to give it to him, Robert?
Yeah, of course. It's 800-753-8534.
Now, let's talk about some crazy stuff. I like to mention the news. So I don't know if y'all heard the other night, Biden was on with Scott Pelley on 60 Minutes,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And he was talking about how the pandemic is over. Well, Jean Paré, who is the secretary, who is the one that's up there on the podium every day talking to the news, like press secretary, she says that COVID remains a problem. Days after, Biden just declared that the pandemic is over. And I don't know about y'all. I don't know what y'all's feelings are on everybody walking across our border. I have my own feelings. I'll keep them to myself. But, this governor down in Florida, DeSantis, he literally just he sent a whole plane load of illegal migrants. And I say illegal because they're not here legally. They haven't, done everything. All I remember in my days, you had to go to class, you had to wait, you had to get your certificate, all that stuff. Now they just walk across the border and they're still illegal, but for somehow Biden's flying them over, giving them laptops, giving them phones, giving them hotels to stay in, putting them in. I mean, it's crazy what they're doing, and yet our dollar just keeps going down, and it's costing us more goods. And those of you that are struggling out there for health insurance and all these other things, these immigrants that are coming across the border, they're getting it all for free while you're suffering. It's sad. It's really, really sad. But anyway, the funny part of it is Georgetown is where Biden has his beach big mansion over there on the beach, and that's where they flew these migrants. You know about this?
No, I haven't heard much about this. Tell me more.
Yeah. So DeSantis sends his own plane, and he puts a plane load of these people into the plane, and he sends them to Georgetown, where that's Biden's town, and now the left, they're in a tizzy, and they're wanting to arrest DeSantis. They want to stop him from doing what he's doing, and he's just laughing at them all. It's crazy. It's crazy. And then you've got this crazy governor, or no, he's running for governor. Is that what it is? Or no?
The individual that wants people to come out of jail.
Oh yeah, what's his name? Creepy Joe Fetterman. They call it.
Fetterman. Yeah, that's
Creepy
right.
Joe Fetterman. He literally was laughing and was glad that they just let a guy. I'm trying to find it right now. Creepy Joe Fetterman. I gotta share this with you. So Creepy Joe Fetterman, they call him. If you look into his eyes, they say he looks like Satan.
Oh, dude, this
satanic.
Deranged.
Yeah. Okay. So Creepy John Fetterman cheered when killer who stabbed a man 26 times with garden shears was released from prison. And he's happy that the guy was released. Man, this is scary because this guy is going against some other guy named Oz. Oz in Pennsylvania. Scary times ahead, I'll tell you that. So, this was our first go around show. We're going to be bringing in more, and we'll fine tune this more and more. And we're just two crazy guys that want to tell you everything that's not a hoax. And all you got to do is just open your eyes, and again, give us a call. We'll be happy to talk to you. Rob, give them that number again. It's 800
753-8465.
There you go. You got the number. So listen, just watch us. We're going to build this channel. We want to get a large listening audience out there. We want you to watch us. We're not expecting anything from this. We just want you to watch and learn. Again, thank you for listening to us for the first time. I'm going to play this crazy board. I wonder if y'all can hear this. Let's see. Well, that's sleepy. Wait. There we go.
There you
Yay!
go.
Good night. I don't know what I'm doing.
That was good. You came in with a lot
End
of
stream.
energy.
Your stream will stop me. Oh.